Hi, my name is Alistair Kroll. I'm the chair of the Forward 50 conference, and I'm a frequent writer and speaker on the topic of data. I wrote a book called Lean Analytics, and I taught a course at Harvard Business School called Data Science and Critical Thinking. I've put together some of the lessons I've learned over the years about how to think about data, and I'm going to teach them in 11 sessions called 11 Things About Data. This is the first one, why data matters so much today. So back in the era of broadcast radio, advertisers needed to know how to share ads with the right target markets, and radio stations needed to know how to price those ads. And so a company called Arbitron created these things called listening diaries. Listening diaries were a way for a target sample to tell Arbitron what stations they were listening to. So each day, somebody would fill out this little diary saying what radio station they were listening to. And everything went fine, but everyone was lying. People in Los Angeles would write down that they were listening to Hispanic community radio when in fact they were listening to top 40 music. People would fill in their books at the end of the week on a Saturday, so radio stations ran ads on Friday saying, hey everybody, you're listening to KROC FM, because that meant they were more likely to be listed as the radio station someone had listened to. And those funny phone-in contests that people run, well, they do those from 8:25 to 8:35 because they knew that 8:15 to 8:30 and 8:30 to 8:45 was the most coveted listening period. So everybody was cheating and things were fine. And then in 2012, Arbitron launched this product. This product sat on your hip. It's called a personal listening device. And all it does is listen for an inaudible signal in broadcast radio that tells you what station you're listening to. And every day, the people who wore this would bring it home and it would synchronize with Arbitron's computers and tell them what behaviors people were actually exhibiting with radio rather than just what people said. This completely upended the recording industry because it turns out that radio stations with a 50% market share were down at 20 or 30%. Those Hispanic men, there was actually a class action lawsuit by community radio because this was defunding those community radio stations. And the radios changed their behavior too, because now we knew exactly what song you were listening to, what made you stick around, and what made you leave. If you left at 7:14 p.m. and a certain song had come on at that time, we knew that song was no longer popular. This changed DJ behavior dramatically. When a song is popular, it's in what's called heavy rotation. And back in 2007, if a song was popular, it would get played around 6 times a day. But after the arrival of this personal audio device, the popular songs got played more than once an hour. That's astonishing. But it's what happens when data enters a market. And the Arbitron story is a canary in the coal mine for data science as a whole. Now, we live in a world where everybody is recording data. The sheer number of cell phones in our pockets recording every act we do is astonishing. And we can build maps of where we live, where we travel, what we do, and infer that using the digital exhaust of our online lives. This idea that we are awash in information is nothing new. In fact, in the 70s, the philosopher and economist Herbert Simon said we live not in an information age, but in an attention age. He called it the attention economy because economies are defined by what's scarce. Information is abundant, and we have to ask ourselves, what does information consume? And the answer, of course, is our attention, the most precious thing today. We also live in a world where everything's a funnel. Your smartwatch is constantly urging you to get up and take some walks or drink more water. Every single part of our online lives and increasingly our physical lives is part of a funnel, a series of steps, each analyzed to see how many people move forward and how many abandon them. But this information that's all around us is seldom turned into useful knowledge. Information is just raw material. The sum of all human knowledge has been going up for a very long time. If you look at the history of book productions in Western Europe, that spiked in the 15th century, and it was an exponential curve. If you look at the number of new book titles published per million inhabitants, that's been going up exponentially too. In fact, we've always made more information recently than long ago, and that trend continues to grow exponentially. But in the last 30 or 40 years, something fundamentally changed. which was that we no longer needed to have knowledge about knowledge. We could just go and search pretty much for free all of the facts around us. Think about that. That's a consciousness upgrade for our species of unprecedented proportions. Any of us, or most of us, can pull out a device and search the sum total of human knowledge in a moment. When historians or some distant alien race look back at humanity, they're going to see this as the greatest transformation of any species. And it's led to a Cambrian explosion of new ideas and new information and introspection, and a change in how we think and organize ourselves and govern ourselves. There's a problem with this. We didn't evolve to be good at information. We evolved to be good at getting the approval of our tribe, hunting some food, staying relatively safe. In fact, if you were to ask a bunch of people to estimate how much work it would take to deliver some software, their estimates, even experts, would vary by 71%. If you ask pathologists to assess biopsies, their correlation is only 61%. 1.0 would be perfect in this case. If you ask a bunch of companies how long it'll take to do a project, experts who've worked on the job for more than 5 years vary in their estimates by 60%. Daniel Kahneman says the unavoidable conclusion of all this is that professionals make decisions that deviate significantly from those of their peers and from themselves and from history. We are terrible at thinking about data. And yet we have to. A 2011 study by MIT showed that companies that make decisions using data, instead of shooting from the hip, do 5 to 6% better every year. If you're an organization, you need to get better at working with and thinking about data, because it is the thing in which we swim and it is the future of our species. And in the next 10 lessons, I'm going to walk you through some ideas about how to think about data, how to be skeptical about data, how to explore it, and how to put it to work in your organization.